Hey guys, it's Jack, and in this video I want to talk to you about center of mass. So let's define this quickly. So an object's mean position of mass, that is a point that is perfectly surrounded by equal amounts of mass in all directions. So essentially it's going to be the given part throughout the rep where the desirable muscle can best access the weight. Now, machines will account for center of mass, both plate loaded and pin loaded, whereas the free weights don't. So that means that it's up to you to create optimal alignment throughout the exercise to keep the weight in center of mass. Now, you can either create this with your body or with the bar, because something's got to give. When I say bar, I mean barbell, dumbbell, whatever you happen to be using for the exercise that's not a machine. So even though a lot of exercises might appear to be very linear and straightforward, the fact of the matter is that your body doesn't give a fuck about center of mass. It wants to take the path of least resistance. So the further out of the path of center of mass that you travel, and 5 centimeters is enormous here, then the more that the weight is going to be distributed to less desirable areas, which will reduce your output and increase your risk of injury. So I'm going to take these out and give you a better look at what I'm exactly talking about. But before we do that, I just want to put emphasis that what we're talking about is a very specific path that you have to create, which will allow the desirable muscle to get optimal access to the weight and keep you as safe as possible. All right, so let's start off with a front squat. So you can see that the bar is traveling in a straight line, very linear. And what's allowing this is the angles that you create with your body to keep it in this bar path, which is your center of mass. So this is going to be the case across all of your squats, your front squat and your back squat, both high bar and low bar. Now these different methods of squatting are quite different mechanically, which is important because the bar being positioned differently means that the weight distribution is also going to be different. And you're going to have to account for this with your body alignment to keep the bar in center of mass, which is a linear path here. Anyway, I just wanted to use this as an example of an exercise where the bar is linear, but your body is what creates the angles to keep that bar traveling in a straight line and keep it distributed in optimal center of mass. All right, now we're going to look at an exercise which is the opposite, which is where your body is going to be motionless and you're going to create the optimal angles for center of mass with the bar. So the best way that I can explain this is that on the squeeze at the top of the rep, the bar should be directly up in a straight line from your shoulder joint to properly distribute the weight to your chest muscles to squeeze. Now, if you travel downwards from there in a straight line, it's going to take you up much closer towards your throat, which is a horrible angle to distribute the weight to your chest and stretch your chest. It's going to put a heap of unnecessary strain where it doesn't need to be. Now, the optimal angle to distribute the weight to your chest muscles on the stretch side of the rep on a flat bench is going to be right on your sternum, so right where the dent in your chest is. Now, obviously, these angles aren't even close to corresponding. So what does that mean? That you're going to have a curved bar path to get optimal distribution and keep the weight in center of mass throughout each rep. So pretty much visualize point A, visualize point B, connect them with a straight line, and that is your bar path. So I've done a few extra ones at the end here, which I've fucked up. And the first couple are off on the bottom and the second couple are off on the top. So either way, the bar's out of center of mass, so you're not going to have optimal weight distribution to the desired area, which will reduce your performance and increase your risk of injury. Alright, so before we move on, let's quickly talk about variables, because there's many variables with the bench press as there is with any exercise. So there are a lot of factors that could change your bench press, which this should alter your center of mass to some degree. Say if you lay flatter on the bench or you have a wider grip. So I'm not trying to debate the perfect bench press, but more so make the point that it's unlikely that the angles at the top of the rep and the bottom of the rep are going to be identical. Hence, you're going to have to create different angles with the bar to some degree for optimal weight distribution. Now let's move on to the overhead press. So here is a good example of an exercise where you're creating your center of mass with both the bar and your body. So the more the bar can travel in a straight line here from point A, which is going to be right on the top of your collarbone, to point B, which again is going to be directly up from your shoulder joint in a straight line, the better your center of mass is going to be. So obviously the bar can't travel in a directly straight line because it has to go around your head. But the more that you can pull your head right out of the way and keep the bar as tight as possible, the better capabilities that you're gonna have because the weight is being distributed properly. So again, I wanted to show you some shithouse ones at the end. You can see how much more I have to travel out and around my head when I don't pull it out the way. Remember that center of mass is a very fine bar path, and each centimeter outside of that you travel stuffs up your weight distribution and will reduce your capabilities and increase your risk of injury. Alright, so we're going to finish on a straight leg deadlift, and what's keeping the bar in optimal center of mass again is a combination of the bar and your body. So pretty much the bar needs to stay in as tight to your body as possible throughout the rep. So that means keeping it in close to your thighs and then in close to your shins once you pass the knees. Now, it's mostly your body alignment that creates this, but you also need to pull the bar in tight to your shins because the bar doesn't give a fuck about center of mass. It just wants to go to the ground. And it's not going to want to stay in tight to your legs where the weight can be properly distributed to the desirable muscles, which is your hamstrings and your glutes. So I've done a few ugly ones at the end here just to give you an idea of what that looks like. And even though it's not that far out, trust me, it makes a world of difference. Particularly on your compound movements, the heavier that the weight is, the more costly it's going to be to fall outside of your optimal center of mass. Right, so there you have it. Now, one last thing that I want to mention is that one of the quickest ways to cause imbalances or to hurt yourself is through improper weight distribution, which is why center of mass is such a helpful and important concept. Anyway, catch you later.